Hi everyone, my name is Richard Phillips, and I am the creator of the Modern Miracles deck. So today is going to be the first video, hopefully of many, where we will be talking about Modern Miracles. So the reason why I thought that today would be a good day to start with video recording is because Rivals of Ixalan just was released, and this guy here is now modern legal, Riverwise Auger. And it has a brainstorm effect. It's an effect that's been needed in Modern in order really to enable the miracles that you can see in Legacy. So this allows you to draw 3 cards, put 2 cards back on top of your library, which is an effect that has been missing in the format and has at least turned the corner on this deck. I'm not going to say this deck's good now, but it now has a reliable way of setting up miracles. Before, you were forced to look at cards like Telling Time, which is at best a poor man's enabler, and at worst a awful card that you must put 1 card on top of your deck. In a lot of cases, Anticipate would actually be better than Telling Time. So one of the people I've been talking to online, part of this group here, where this will be featured, the U-White competitive group, Oren, has been working around with Riverwise Auger, and he was the one who originally sent me a list that included Riverwise Auger as well as some enabling cards around it, namely Venser. So Venser, then Blink the Augur, or Blink Spreading Seas, or something like that. It was a value-based deck. And I've played that deck, and it's very interesting. And then I kind of put this into my shell. So this is my shell, but you should also check out his videos. He does an excellent job playing the deck, and it's another interesting deck. So basically, I just wanted there to be video content of this as well as the other deck. You can decide for yourself which is better. I still play both of them. I think they're both great. So let's talk a little bit about what is in the deck. So the one thing that's really interesting about this deck is that we have the 8 cantrips. We have 4 Serum Visions, which somehow got separated here, 4 Serum Visions, and 4 Opt. So that's 8 1-mana cantrips, which allows us to just play 23 lands. So we'll first go over these lands. We have the 4 Flooded Strand, which are pretty obvious. We have 3 more blue fetches. Now, one of the reasons why you want extra blue fetches is because Riverwise Auger, in order to complete the Brainstorm effect, you either want to be putting a miracle on top of your deck, or you want to be shuffling. You don't want to be just like drawing 3 cards and putting 2 bad ones on top. The shuffle effect is really what makes this deck good. So in terms of shuffle effects, you have these, as well as you have Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin's excellent against Eldrazi Tron, regular Tron. Can also take opponents off of man lands, and it can also help yourself find lands. Another thing that's cool about this deck is that we have a very high basic count. We've got the 3 plains and we've got the 5 islands. And this will allow for very painless and streamlined mana. The only downside to this is that occasionally you are going to run into situations where you can't cast, let's say, Cryptic Command plus Logic Knot. But the inclusion of so many basic lands basically means that you have a very high chance of being able to hit your lands without taking, let's say, 3, 4, or 5 damage over the course of the game. You can almost reliably do it with just taking 2 damage. You have the 2 Hollowed Fountains in case you absolutely need to shock yourself. So let's say you have like 2 Pats in hand and maybe some sideboard cards or something like that. But this deck does very little shocking, and it does a lot of fetching for basic lands. In addition, we only have 3 Colonnade. We don't want tap lands in this deck, and we're also planning on going a little bit longer than most control decks. So we don't really need the full 4 Colonnades, because by the time we start attacking with a Colonnade, we'll already probably even have the second one. And we have amazing card selection in the deck. We got the 4 Path to Exiles. We got 1 Spell Snare, which is excellent against mid-range matchups, as well as control mirrors. Search for Azcanta is amazing in this deck. It's really one of the reasons why this deck became good in the first place. This helps filter non-miracle cards away, as well as bad cards that you have to leave on top with Telling Time, and it's just a great value engine. Got 2 Snapcaster Mages. We have 3 2-mana counterspells. I'm just including this as a 2-mana counterspell. In 2 Leaks, 1 Logic Knot. You don't want to be too reliant on the Logic Knot, because once again we have the 3 basic planes. plus is the Field of Ruin. So, I mean, once again, if we could have perfect mana like we could in Legacy, this would probably take up more spots. But mana leak's a lot easier on our mana. We got the 3 Augurs, 3 Cryptic Commands, just great utility. Jace, amazing against token strategies as well as control mirrors. You can draw cards or you can more or less fog your opponent each turn. Narset is insane in this deck. A lot of people will look at Narset Transcendent and be like, I mean, you don't even draw a card every turn, and like, what are you going to do? It's -2 for. And that's a fair criticism. You rarely do its -2. But with the ability to set up the top of your deck with Riverwise Auger, Serum Visions, and Telling Time, you almost always can draw a card with Narset. And its -9 is game over against any combo deck, or really any control deck. So it has a lot of upside in this deck. It almost always draws a card, and it has such high loyalty that your opponent spends a lot of time killing it. Supreme Verdict, 1. I wanted to put 1 in with the Terminuses because sometimes you just need the uncounterable effect, and in testing it's been better than the 4th Terminus. The 1 Monastery Mentor pairs really well with the Opt Serum Visions, as well as some of these other cards. You can power it out really quickly. It's like the one way to just very straightforward win the game. Cast Mentor, cast a couple Opt Serum Visions, win the game. It's great in the late game. And then we have 2 Entreat the Angels as ways to put things, as ways to generate huge angels, just like the Legacy deck. So that's our 60 main. We'll move over to the sideboard here. And we have a couple of very interesting decisions here. First is the inclusion of Wheel of Sun and Moon. Now, Wheel of Sun and Moon is not a great card. And you can look at it here. It says, card will be put into enchanted player's graveyard from anywhere. Instead, that card is revealed and put on the bottom of that player's library. Unfortunately, because of the type of deck that we run, we can't play Rest in Peace. A lot of regular blue-white control can just play Rest in Peace. This deck really can't. Search for Azcanta is too important to what this deck is trying to do, as well as just some of the other synergies that we have in this deck, such as like Logic Knot, Snapcaster Mage, etc. I found that actually playing the card Rest in Peace makes it really hard for us to win the game. It would have to basically be a blowout Rest in Peace in order for it to do anything. So we're stuck with Wheel of Sun and Moon or Surgical Extraction. Problem with Surgical Extraction is that it is too slow. Not too slow, but it is. It doesn't totally shut down opponents' strategies in a lot of cases. Like, even if you surgically extract Dredge once, there's a good chance they can still win. So if you get rid of all of their, and usually you do target their Bloodghasts with the Surgical. That's one of the, you just take them right out. It's really hard for them to enable other things. But if you don't put a clock on the opponent, they can still win. So Wheel of Sun and Moon kind of doesn't really do anything great, but it doesn't shut off our deck, and it hopefully hoses opponents' decks. But once again, this isn't really a card that we want to board into a lot. The cool thing in this deck is that we have this 7-card package of 2 Geists, 4 Spell Quellers, and a Vendilion Click. This is what I call the Aggression package, and it gets boarded in place of the the Terminus, Supreme Verdict, and Planeswalker package in some matchups where we're just looking to apply pressure. The cleanest in-out that you'll see, especially against decks that don't have creatures that we don't need to board wipe, will be out 4 Terminus, out Supreme Verdict, out 4 Path to Exiles, bring these in, and then usually a Dispel or a couple of Negates. You'll see, as we go along, but basically what this does is this allows us to put a very, very quick clock on opponents that don't care too much about our creature removal, because they're looking to win the game somehow else. We have Disdainful Stroke against big mana, Negates against control mirrors or other decks that we're looking to negate big spells. Got the 1 Dispel for like company decks, control decks, things like that. Ceremonious Rejection for Affinity, Lantern, Tron, etc. And then the 1 Timely Reinforcements against Burn. You just kind of have to hedge against Burn. You can't really just hope you don't hit it. The deck is fine against Burn between Timely and the Spell Quellers. It's not great. Alright, and with that, guys, we will head into our first match. And I'll see you at the beginning of round 1. Alright guys, welcome to round 1 of our competitive league. We're going to be running this through a competitive league. We're playing against Mad 8 Ball, and we rolled a 6, which is higher than our opponent, so we will begin by going first. I'll try to give you guys as much information as I can about scries and stuff like that, but because I'm playing on a laptop, I'm going to close this for now. Alright, so we have an interesting hand here. We have one white source in our hand. We have Narset, Snapcaster, Path, Riverwise. I think on average this is a clunky draw, but at the same time, because we have the one Path to Exile as well as an ability for late game, we're not really weak to anything except for a big mana deck. So we'll keep this hand, especially on the play. You can't really ask for more than this. We don't have really any spell interaction with our opponent. We're going to start on this Misty Rainforest and probably get a tapped land. Alright, looks like our opponent's either playing Dredge or Burn. Playing Dredge. Oh boy. This is exactly what I didn't want to see for round 1. We're just talking about how Wheel of Sun and Moon is a poor man's Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace would be significantly better in this matchup. Oh boy, hit a Bloodghast and a Prized Amalgam. There's no Dredger in that hand, which is interesting. There's, I wouldn't say a high chance that we can survive this, but there is a chance. Terminus is really good in this matchup. Alright, so we have the ability now to counter one of their best cards, which is what's it called? Cathartic Reunion. So we'll pass with 2 mana up, but we can Spell Snare Cathartic Reunion now. Or if they put one of those cards on the battlefield, the Bloodghast, which will trigger the Prized Amalgam, we can path one of them at the end of the turn, which is nice. Well, not nice, but I mean this is not where you want to be against Dredge, is pathing their creatures, but it's significantly better than, I don't know, maybe not pathing their creatures, I guess would be a better, just letting it hit us. Alright, so Prized Amalgam enters the effect area. They're going to cast Cathartic Reunion. We're going to Spell Snare it. Alright, so they discarded a Conflagrate and a Golgari Thug, which is interesting to note. Golgari Thug allows them to start dredging. Conflagrate is going to be devastating to us towards the end of the game. Alright, so we have an interesting decision here, and basically that is, do we want to path the Prized Amalgam? And I think the answer is yes, because right now if we path them, we're not going to be triggering any landfall for the opponent. So we will path the Prized Amalgam here. Prized Amalgam hits harder than the Bloodghast. They actually, it looks like they don't have any more basic lands. They must have their one forest in their hand, which is very good for us. Alright, so we once again bricked on a land. We will need to draw one of those next turn. Fortunately, we have a Snapcaster Mage where we can path one more of our opponent's things. And hopefully, okay, so they hit another Bloodghast after dredging the Golgari Thug. Fortunately, they don't really have any payoffs in their graveyard other than the one Bloodghast. And I think we can fight our way through one more Bloodghast. If it gets a little more than that, it's going to be a little bit tough. I'll be perfectly honest with you. If they cast another Cathartic Reunion, I'm going to snap Spell Snare it. Don't want them drawing that many cards. Okay, they're going to Life from the Loam. So this is interesting. Basically what we need to know is whether or not we want to turn off their ability to dredge for one turn. I think the answer to that is no. We're going to let that resolve. That was a good get from the opponent, though. Alright, so they're going to attack with this Bloodghast. We will just take this opportunity now and snap Path the Bloodghast, because they're going to play a land leader in the turn anyway. And this way we can prevent them basically from, well, not prevent them, but prevent them from getting too much value off the path. We don't want pathing a Bloodghast to get back more Bloodghasts, if that makes sense. Oh, right, they don't have lands anyway. Okay, so it's a little bit... It doesn't really matter, honestly, what we did there in terms of playing or not playing that path at that specific time. All right, well, we bricked on a land again, which is not great, but we can play a Search for Azcanta, which hopefully will let us hit our next land drop. And then we're not going to trade with the Bloodghast. Bloodghast can't block, but we're going to get in there for 2. We're not in a great spot here. We really need to hit a Terminus. If we hit a Terminus, it's going to be very hard for our opponent to get their Bloodghasts back. So we've gotten rid of 2 of their 8 creatures, main creatures. I'm not going to count the Narcomoebas. Plus, they have 1 Cathartic Reunion in the graveyard, which is not great. They have 6 cards in hand, so that means that they can kill the Snapcaster and deal us 5 this turn if they really want to. It probably wouldn't be the best use of the Conflagrate, but they do want to get back, or get rid of the... Life from the Loam they have in hand. They might just cast it here, getting back like they don't have any Dredgers in their hand or in the graveyard now, so, other than Salvage. Salvage only dredges too, so I'm not terribly worried about that card specifically. So we're not in a great spot here, but we're not favored in this match game 1 at all. Actually, we're not favored in this match at all in any games. So we're gonna have to win by getting lucky, I think. We don't have a clock on the opponent. We can't cast Entreat the Angels with the mana we currently have. We have not set up a Miracle. Okay, so they're getting back 3 cards now. Now they have Life from the Loam, which dredges 3. There's a chance they might just play land and then fire off a big Conflagrate here just so they can empty their hand and put more Dredgers in the yard, because as of right now they can't put Dredgers in the yard other than the ones that they currently are there. They have a Faithless Looting in there, which they can flash back next turn, but I'm expecting a very large Conflagrate here to kill the Snapcaster, deal us like 6 damage, and put at least the 1 Golgari Thug we know they have in hand in the graveyard. And then they'll be set up next turn to Faithless Looting, flash back, draw, or dredge rather. There are 2 Dredgers that they'll have in there, which would be Life from the Loam and Golgari Thug, and potentially run us over from there. Alright, so here comes the big Conflagrate. 1 at the Snapcaster, probably 8 at us. Or sorry, 6 at us. I'm good at math. Okay. So we knew that was going to happen. They pitched 2 Golgari Thugs, which is interesting to note, and another Conflagrate. So that's not great for us. They're going to be able to dredge a lot here, and they're going to be set up very well for an explosive. Not the next turn, but the turn after that is going to do a lot of damage. Yes, we'd love to put another Search for Azcanta in the graveyard. Okay, so we drew another land. Alright, so this is interesting. We basically need to figure out here whether or not we think that landing a Narset or being able to counter something with Cryptic Command is going to be enough to win this game. They're going to be dredging Golgari Thug and then flashing back Faithless Looting, it looks like. If we counter the Faithless Looting, does that put us in a better spot than trying to draw action with the Riverwise Auger? It's a tough decision, because they're definitely going to be flashing back to Faithless Looting. They only have 1 card in hand. It's really tough. I don't really know. I think we're going to just pass the turn. I think we're so far behind here that we need our opponent to misplay in some way in order for us to win this game. Blocking the Bloodghast isn't really doing much. We basically need them to dredge here and kind of... Okay, so they hit Haunted Dead and a Narcomoeba, which isn't great. But hopefully we can... Hopefully we can do something here that is going to be pretty fun. I don't know. We'll see with this cryptic command. If we bounce the Bloodghast, they would have to cast a Conflagrate in order to cast again because they have 0 black mana right now. Kind of interesting. They're going to flash back to Faithless Looting here. Oh no, they're casting a Life from the Limb. Okay, that's going to resolve, and then that'll let them then cast the Faithless Looting. Okay, so they're not casting the Faithless Looting because they know that we have the ability to... what am I trying to say? They know that we have the ability to counter, and they didn't want to expose themselves. So we're going to return the Bloodghast to their hand and draw a card. Cool. All right, so that worked out at least, reasonably well. We drew Mana Leak, which is not a good card in this matchup. But our opponent did not have what I would call like a super explosive turn. Do we want to put Island in our graveyard? I think the answer is yes, because we want to flip the Search for Ascanta here. So yes, we want to flip. Okay, we're bluffing a Miracle. No thanks. Alright, so now we're going to cast the Riverwise Auger. Draw 3. Put a couple back on our top of our library. Hopefully we get a Terminus on this section here. A Terminus would be ideal. If not, we can cast the Serum Visions to scry some of these to the bottom. There's an argument for saying that we should have played the Serum Visions first, and I don't necessarily disagree with that assessment, especially with the way that this hand turned out, which was that there's no lands on it. It looks like what our play here is going to be is put back Narset, put back Opt, then we're going to cast the Serum Visions, draw the Opt, scry the Jace to the Narset to the bottom, as well as the Serum Visions, and basically just like pray that we can hit a Miracle on top of our library, or with the Telling Time and then Opt into it during our opponent's turn, which is a really neat play. Alright, our opponent's got some sort of instant here. Oh, they're going to get back the Haunted Dead, sorry. So they'll pitch a card, and this says, discard 2 cards, return it to the battlefield tapped, and they get a 1/1 in addition to that. So they ditched a Bloodghast and an Arid Mason in order to do that. Alright. Alright, they hit another Narcomoeba. They have 33 cards left in their deck. We still have the ability to draw Miracle. Even if we make 3 Angels on this board, we're not doing great, but we're doing okay. We play Jace on this board. Jace is actually pretty good on this board. The problem is that they have that Conflagrate. Okay, they're getting back some more lands. They've got 1 Bloodghast in the graveyard. Plus a Faithless Looting. They can cast the Faithless Looting here. Alright, so they play Dackmore Salvage, get back Bloodghast. They're going to enter combat. Okay. We don't want to block the Bloodghast. If they attack with the Haunted Dead, we'll block that. Okay, they didn't attack with that. Alright, we want to preserve our life total, so we are going to block the Bloodghast. If we were to take... they did attack with the Haunted Dead. I don't know what I'm talking about. There was a good chance that was the correct block. However, we were in a good spot either way. We do know they have more lands in hand, but the Bloodghast has haste. Yeah, it was probably a bad block. There needs to be a very... specific set of draws here in order for us to get out. We basically need to draw Terminus right here. They could just conflagrate us. Okay, no, they're going to Faithless Looting. All right. All right, they got another Narcomoeba. This is the one that makes us discard, right? Oh, sorry, this one. Creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature does combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. Alright, so they got another Narcomoeba. So we have 4 looks at Terminus here, and even then I think we're still dead. The Entreat the Angels is not going to do it because they can just give everything menace. So we're not going to cast that. We just can't, unfortunately. We're going to cast the cast the Telling Time here. Hopefully draw a land. No, okay, so yeah, we're just dead here. We'll put this in our hand, this on the top of our library. We'll play the Misty, crack the Misty, find a land, pass the turn. At the beginning of their combat step, we'll opt. If we hit Terminus, then we will cast it. Our opponent thinks right now that we have Cryptic Command. So they are going to cast the Despair. So that's good. That means that we actually, so if we hit exactly, if we opt into exactly Terminus, then we can hold up Mana Leak so they can't conflagrate us this turn. So if they actually try to conflagrate us after this, we will be able to beat them. If we hit the Terminus once again. Alright, so beginning of combat, we'll have them actually just attack with their creatures. Alright, we will cast an Opt. We actually hit the Terminus. That's beautiful. We would love to reveal the Terminus. Okay. We would like to cast the Terminus and pay white. And our opponent will now put all their creatures on the bottom of their library. Cool. And our opponent's just going to pass the turn. That's fine. No, we would not like to do that. One of the problems is that we can't tap out for anything because we're dead to Conflagrate. We're also dead to Golgari Thug. Or not Golgari Thug. We're dead to a lot of things. Our opponent basically needed to go for it there with the Conflagrate after. So we have a couple options here. We can Mana Leak. Our opponent says he misclicked, which is not the case at all. If our opponent actually tried to do what he wanted to do, he would have lost the game. It turns out our opponent made an amazing play by misclicking. Because our opponent really just wanted to kill us there with the Conflagrate, and we would have Mana Leaked it, and then he would have been really, really sad. I don't know what we should do here. We can Jace minus Jace. We're still dead. We're dead to Conflagrate. I mean, if our opponent casts the Conflagrate now, we're just dead to it. I guess our out could be if we hit Logic Knot with the Jace. Or hit Logic Knot with the Escanta. So Escanta gives us 4 hits at a Logic Knot. Jace gives us 3 hits at a Logic Knot. I guess we're playing the Jace. Because we just need to do something. We just need to put something on the board. We can't be sitting here just not doing anything. That's not... It's not going to win us the game. We're just very dead to that Conflagrate. We also have Faithless Looting. Yeah, this is just not going well for us here. Alright, Serum Visions versus a couple of lands. We're just going to put the lands in our hand because that'll let us hard cast a Terminus next turn and also a Mana Leak. We'll play a tapped Hallowed Fountain, I guess. If we Serum Visions there, we were actually just dead. We need to at least show our opponent that we have the ability to cast some cards that matter. Our opponent dredged. Didn't really hit anything. I'm hoping that they're too scared to just cast this Conflagrate. Alright. So that's nice. They're casting the Faithless Looting, which will have them draw and then discard. Alright, they discarded a Prized Amalgam and a Bloodghast. We can just hard cast the Terminus next turn. They only have 12 cards left in their library. Oh, is there 2 Bloodghasts? Yeah, it looks like I missed a Bloodghast in there. That's not good. Okay. Well, it looks like we lost. There were some interesting decision trees during there in that game. Yeah, we're just dead. Alright, so then the other line would have been to plus the Jace, which is what would have not let us be dead to 2 Bloodghasts. Can I look in the log and see where that Bloodghast went? No. Alright. Well, that was game 1. Alright, well, we're going to bring in the Wheel of Sun and Moons. They're really bad, but we're going to do it. The Supreme Verdict is not good. It's just really not good. Neither is Path. We don't really want Path. We want to be interacting with our opponent outside of Path. To be perfectly honest, there's a lot of cards in this matchup that aren't great. One of the ways that we can just kind of... It's such a non-boat with Terminus, though. Narset's not very good. We could bring in the 4 Spell Quellers. So we have... Now we're having Terminus and Spell Quellers in the same deck. Yeah, we just don't really have good plan. We can't just bring in, like, 2 Negates and, you know, some other... Like, I mean, we just can't do it. I guess Negate's technically better than Mana Leak. We're not going to be Mana Leaking any creatures, so we'll just bring in Negates. I don't know if we want Negates and Mana Leaks. I guess we'll cut a Riverwise Auger for another Mana Leak. I guess we just want some interaction. Same with Search. Search isn't super important in this matchup. Bring in another Mana Leak. We'll try it like that. Like I said, this is a very bad matchup. We have a Terminus in hand, we have a Logic Knot, we have Awkward Mana. No sideboard cards. Basically, I'm wondering if I can win this game without Wheel of Sun and Moon. And if we can, it's not with a hand like this. I don't think. We won't be able to interact with our opponent meaningfully until turn 2. Well, I guess we have the Negate. It's good against specific hands that our opponent has, but if our opponent has the Insolent Neonate start, this is awful. Like, this is just so bad. This doesn't do anything until turn 6 against that kind of start. So I think we're going to mulligan. Alright, this is a little bit better. We at least have ways to search for cards that we need in this matchup. Yeah, I'm a lot happier keeping this kind of hand. Alright, there's Colonnade on top. We don't want another tap land because we're going to try to play Azcanta on 2, so I'm going to put that on the bottom for now. And then in order to not mess up our scry, because we're not opting for anything on turn 1. We're just going to get our tap land down right now. Our opponent went down to 6, which is worth noting. I don't think that means that we're in any better shape, but at least it's there. Hopefully this is like Faithless Looting. If this is the Insolent Neonate start, I think we're in a lot of trouble. Okay, Faithless Looting. The Insolent Neonate start is less consistent, but more explosive, and our hand's not really set up to beat more explosive. Because like this Faithless Looting start, they're not even necessarily guaranteed to get anything on the board next turn, which is, you know, very cool for us. All right, so we drew an Opt. There's a big question here, basically, whether or not we would like to opt twice or if we would like to cast a Search for Azcanta. And I don't know if there's a good answer to that question, honestly. I think this Flooded Strand's going to get Basic Island. So we can either get Basic Island and cast Opt, or we can just cast Search for Azcanta. I guess the Opts are going to be good later at enabling things like Terminus. So we're just going to cast the Search for Azcanta now. The Search for Azcanta is actually almost like casting an Opt each turn in terms of finding our 2 sideboard hate cards for this matchup. So we're basically going to bin anything that's not Terminus, Wheel of Sun and Moon, or a island. If it's another planes, we'll bottom it, I think. Alright, is our opponent going to, like, Thoughtseize us here? That's interesting. We don't have anything to take. It's a good thing we put the Search for Azcanta. They took the Cryptic Command, which is fine. I mean, that's just really just a fog. Okay, so they really have nothing going on, which is excellent for us. We would love to activate our Search for Azcanta trigger. Yeah, this went really well. Logic Knot. Because they're set up to Life from the Loam or Faithless Looting next turn. Probably Dredge Life from the Loam, cast Faithless Looting from the graveyard. So we'll say no. Well, then we can't... Yeah, let's put that in our graveyard. Oh, cool, look at that. Continue. We drew the Wheel of Sun and Moon. That's wonderful. Alright, so we'll do that one. You have a Wheel of Sun and Moon on you. So now every card that goes into the graveyard is not actually going into the graveyard, which is nice. Plus we have Opta. So every time a card would be put into their graveyard, it basically goes on the bottom of their library, which is nice. So they can't really dredge anymore. I mean, they can, but it just goes to their hand. See, what did our opponent do there? We're going to bring up the chat here. They dredged the Life from the Loam, so they're going to go try to get some more lands with the Life from the Loam, which they can still do. I mean, they can cast the Life from the Loam and get back the lands, but the Life from the Loam itself is going to go on the bottom of their library. Okay, so they're getting one card. Okay. So they're just returned an Arid Mesa. I don't think our opponent exactly knows how this Wheel of Sun and Moon works. You can see that I paused on it for quite a while. Alright, and they just played a tap land. They got their land so they can, like, hard cast their creatures, if that makes sense. So, like, next turn I could definitely see there being a possibility of them hard casting one of their delve, or their dredge threats, rather. We're going to opt end of turn. We want lands, we want spells also. Alright, so Jace is really interesting. If we draw the Jace, then we have 2 looks at a land, which I think is fine. Alright, so we just need a land now, so we'll bottom anything that's not a land, I think. If we don't draw a land, we'll opt to try to hit a land. Yeah, I'd love to put Cryptic Command in the graveyard. Alright, so Spell Queller. That's interesting. I still think we need to hit lands in a way that I'm going to opt first. All right, second Wheel of Sun and Moon is interesting. Do we want a second Hoser for our opponent? And I think the answer to that is actually no, because right now we're not getting ahead on board. We need to get ahead on board. All right, we drew another Cryptic. It's not ideal. But I don't think drawing the second Wheel of Sun and Moon really does anything there. It's just not... doesn't really help us win the game. If they tap this Gemstone Mine, they lose it. It goes to the grave, or goes into the bottom of their library. All right, cool. They're just passing. This is excellent. Yeah, like I said, we didn't need that second Wheel of Sun and Moon, at least as of now. We would not like to put Island in the graveyard. We would love to draw an Island. We'll play the Island. And we are going to get this Jace down and start drawing off of it. I think that if we cast Jace and we can draw some cards off of Jace, we can put ourselves eventually in a position where our opponent can't even necessarily beat us through through destruction of the Wheel of Sun and Moon. All right, so we're just going to... oh, that's interesting. Our opponent's valuing one of their cards. We know that all they have in their deck is one mountain. So maybe they're valuing their green source a lot. Are they valuing their green source more than we're valuing 2 lands? And I think the answer is no. I think we would just rather take the 2 cards. No, we did play land for the turn. Yes, okay. So that's interesting. Our opponent values their green land more than we value our lands. All right, is our opponent going to destroy the Wheel of Sun and Moon? No? Maybe? Kind of? Abrupt Decay? Okay. Alright, so our opponent's out of that, but they still don't have any Dredgers in their graveyard. They can cast a Faithless Looting, though. They could also cast the Conflagrate to kill the Jace to drop a bunch of looters. That's something else they can do. Alright, and they're going to Maelstrom Pulse our Jace. Okay. Sounds good. Alright, we can flip our search here. Do we want to put a second Spell Queller into the graveyard? Is that how we're going to win this game? So Conflagrate is going to have a CMC that's bigger than that. I'm going to say yes. We want to put that in the graveyard. We would love to transform the Search for Azcanta. Okay, we drew a Negate. That's good. Alright. And we'll play Celestial Colonnade, and we'll pass the turn. I don't think that we want to put out 2 Spell Quellers in the face of a Conflagrate like that. This is an interesting question here. Do we want to Spell Quell the Thoughtseize? Probably not. Do we want to negate the Thoughtseize and then Spell Quell something else? That actually seems pretty reasonable. Let's do that. Let's negate this Thoughtseize, and then hopefully our opponent is going to cast a Flashback Faithless Looting, and we'll Spell Quell that. And then we can Cryptic Command the Conflagrate that's trying to kill the Spell Queller, which would allow them to cast the Faithless Looting again. Okay, cool. So that worked. I'm just trying to stay ahead of our opponent on time. I'm taking a little bit longer because I'm talking about everything that I'm doing. Alright, so we're bluffing a Miracle. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Playing this tapped makes sense this turn because that means the next turn we'll be able to... we'll be able to attack with Colonnade and have 3 mana open, or we can activate Search for Azcanta and cast Cryptic Command. So if our opponent casts a Conflagrate here, we're going to counter it on the spell color, we're going to Cryptic Command, counter it, draw a card. Yeah, okay. So our opponent's empty-handed. Okay. So now we drew a Snapcaster Mage. Ugh. All right. I don't remember if we scryed anything to the bottom. I'm thinking that at this point it's probably best that we thin. So we'll just go ahead and... yeah, because we want... there's a Wheel of Sun and Moon at the bottom that's now lower at the bottom. All right, so if we tap 3, 4, 5, we can activate Celestial Colonnade, but then we don't really have anything that we can Snapcaster. Conversely, if our opponent dredges a Stinkweed Imp and hits basically anything, it's a big problem for us. So the question is... all right. So if our opponent's probably going to try to either cast a Stinkweed Imp or hit Narcomoebas. And because of the way we boarded, we don't really... all right, I need to start playing a little bit faster, I think. I think I'm just going to attack with the Spell Queller. That'll put our opponent to 10. We still need basically them to have a little... okay, so they hit a Narcomoeba, and they have a Bloodghast too. Jeez. All right, this is not great for us. Alright, so we can force through 8 damage next turn, which might be the correct play here. We can tap their team, Snapcaster, tap their team, draw a card. I actually kind of like that. Let's do it. Oh, cool. Actually, this will allow us to win. That's it's pretty wonderful. Okay. All right, cool. So our opponent has those things enter tapped, and then we will cast another Snapcaster Mage, and we'll be going to game 3. Oof. Wow. All right. Some really close plays there, guys. Hit him for Exactsies. Look at that. Going to game 3. This is going to be basically impossible to win this game. We're going to have to get lucky. We're going to have our opponent misplay. There's got to be a lot of things that go right for us. So our question is basically, do we want any number of Path to Exiles? Are they better than cards like Negate, Mana Leak? Are they better than... I mean, we cut one search first, Kanto. Are they better than Telling Time? I don't know if I have a good answer to any of those things. I think I want some number of them. Especially if we're going to be playing an offensive game like that. Also, like, another question is, do we want Geists? I think we're going to take out both Mana Leaks and we're going to bring in both Geists. We basically need to force through damage. So we have huge non-bows in our deck right now. We have the Turbidus and we have the creature package. We have the Wheel of Sun and Moon, and we have a Spell Snare. This is about as perfect as it gets. It's one of the few hands that we have 2 white in our opener, too. This is wonderful. This is, like, exactly perfect. Tap land, tap land, tap land, tap land, tap land. Eee. Can't do too much, buddy. If you do too much, I'm going to be sad. Alright, we got the Faithless Looting. Discarding Thug and Amalgam. Oh boy. Not good. You can tell that there's a big difference between being on the play and being on the draw in this matchup. Especially because we have Wheel of Sun and Moon and not Rest in Peace. I was hoping we wouldn't hit this matchup. Alright, our opponent's going to be able to get back a Prized Amalgam, which is not good. Unless they whiff on lands. If our opponent just whiffs on lands here on this Faithless Looting. Did they whiff on lands? No, they didn't whiff on lands. Okay. Alright, so I guess the one thing that is a little bit, I guess, a saving grace of this is that, other than the one Faithless Looting, we would have been in the exact same bad shape if this was a Rest in Peace instead, because they were already going to get back the 2 cards that really matter in this matchup. Alright, and they're going to get to take our Wheel of Sun and Moon. Yeah, alright, so Rest in Peace or not, this is, just bad. We'll get the other white source. I think they just are obligated to take the Wheel of Sun and Moon. Alright, so ideal draw off the top would be Terminus. Terminus followed by, like, maybe another Terminus, followed by 3rd Terminus. I think our opponent's deciding whether or not they can beat the Wheel of Sun and Moon. Okay, so they can't beat Jace, which is super interesting. They must have like an Abrupt Decay in their hand or something. That's the only way I can really explain this. Continue. We can save 2 damage by playing a Plains. Doesn't seem the worst. I mean, I don't want to just hold up Negate. I think we have to be, as proactive as possible, and being proactive in this case is enchanting our opponent with the Sun and Moon. We're still not in a good spot. We'd be in a much better spot if we can top deck a Miracle. Yeah, it just seemed that our opponent had to have had, some sort of interaction with our Wheel of Sun and Moon, which, I mean, is fine. We gained 4 life off of that, and the opportunity cost of... They did that on our upkeep? I guess they did. Or their upkeep, rather. Yeah, the opportunity cost, rather, of... playing the Wheel of Sun and Moon was negligible. Like, they haven't cast a non-creature spell other than the card that destroyed the Wheel of Sun and Moon. And I think I'd rather have our opponent actually cast the spell as opposed to us just sit there with a Negate in hand and, like, do nothing this turn. This allowed us to use our mana. We were in a bad spot either way, is basically what I'm trying to say. We gained some life out of it. We can use our Queller to block the Geists for... not infinity, or the Bloodghast rather, for not infinity, but for a little while. The Spell Queller is just a reasonable blocker too. We don't necessarily have to cast a spell. All right, so they have a Golgari Thug in hand, which they are now casting. So a Terminus here is just the nuts. We didn't draw it. All right, we will play the island though, and we'll pass the turn. Our opponent is going to flash back the Despair here, probably, and we'll have to Spell Queller it. No? I mean, we kind of have to take it here. I'm not going to... Flashing the Spell Queller here saves us 2 life at the expense of our opponent getting to dredge twice more. Well, not dredge twice more, but draw and then discard. Okay. So, looks like our opponent's just going to pass the turn. That's fine. We basically said our 2 life is worth more than our opponent getting to cast a Faithless Looting. Which I think, you know, I agree with on average. That seems pretty fair. We'll play a tapped Hollowed Fountain, and we'll pass the turn here. We will negate a Faithless Looting or a Despair. We didn't want our opponent casting any of these things. But our out is basically we need to just like draw Terminus, and we're trying to stay alive as long as possible. If our opponent drew exactly land, this is a... Well, what's the CMC of this? The CMC of that's... Oh boy. With the split thing, they just changed the rule in it. I want to say it's 2. Don't quote me on that. It's probably 4. And I'm probably wrong on this. But we'll negate that. Okay, so they didn't draw a land. We'll block... Block a Bloodghast, I guess. Alright, we need something here. Opt. That's not something. Okay. So now we have a very interesting question, which is, should we opt now? Because if we draw Terminus, we can't cast it. Or should we opt during our opponent's turn, where opt is a good draw, or Terminus is a good draw, but we can't cast something like, let's say, Riverwise Auger. And once again, I don't know if there's a good answer to that. So there's 5 miracle cards in the deck that we can't cast at now. So that's 5. And there's 2 Riverwise Augers left. And I think that might be it. 2 Riverwise Augers and a Mentor, a Monastery Mentor. So it looks like on average we want to play this Field of Ruin. Once again, this is not ideal. The Field of Ruin's not ideal. We would like to have an island, but we can't. Yeah, this actually cuts us off from Cryptic Command. I don't know if that's exactly what I wanted. Alright. So we'll wait until they enter combat, because if they cast the... Is there any reason to do it? Yeah, because we can't cast Cryptic Command either. So I probably should have played the Flooded Strand. I should have played the Flooded Strand to get an island. Opt Snapcaster Mage. Alright, so if we get the Snapcaster Mage, we still die. Because we don't have any removal spells in our graveyard, which is unfortunate. So we gotta bottom that. That doesn't do anything either. I think we're out of outs here. Yeah, there's the Terminus. Look at that. And then it would be the second card we drew this turn. Oh, that's so frustrating. 1 off. Because if that was the top card of our library, we're in great... Well, not we're in great shape, but we're in decent shape. Really, we're going to opt again. That. Bottom. Yeah, Riverwise Auger. Alright. We lost. That was close. Let's see if we would drawn. And yeah, Cryptic Command. Alright. So I think we played to our outs in all those games there. Being on the draw for Game 3 was basically a death sentence. There wasn't much we could do Game 3 there. You saw what happened there. I mean, our opponent got to Thoughtseize us, and they didn't take our Graveyard Hate spell, which obviously meant that they had a way to deal with it. We played it. We gained some life off of it, which was nice. Almost let us survive. If that Terminus was 1 card down in our library, we would have been in the game. We probably wouldn't have been winning the game, but we would have been in the game. Our opponent was basically out of gas. Almost entirely out of gas, actually. Like, had nothing left. But neither did we. And all of their blood gas would have had haste for the rest of the match. Alright, we lost our roll to Vivid Zeus, the die roll. This hand is amazing on the draw because it has the best card on the draw, which is Spell Snare. Card's busted. If our opponent is playing a control deck, we'll probably play a Celestial Colonnade. If they're playing anything else, we'll most likely just play Basic Island turn 1 and maybe even turn 2 also. Alright, they're playing Urza's Tower. Alright. Just facing all the bad matchups today. Tron. Look at that. Alright, so we need to get a land destruction spell as quick as possible. So I think in that case, because of that, I'm going to play Island here. Not only does that let us hold up Spell Snare here, but it lets us opt, and we're really looking for a Field of Ruin or a Quick Clock, which we don't really have game 1. It would just be Mentor. I mean, Mentor's fine, but yeah, look at so they'll have turn 3 Tron. We'll have to mana leak their first spell, which isn't great. We'll just opt. We need land destruction like now. That's not land destruction. We'll bottom that. Path to Exile is also not land destruction. Alright, well, Narset is actually really good in this matchup because if we can -9 it, we almost can't lose the game. But it takes forever to set up. Alright, so we scryed one card to the bottom. Thinning does matter. Or, sorry, thinning doesn't matter in terms, like, statistically. However, we do need white mana. So I am going to play out this Misty and pass the turn. Alright, so our opponent cashes in their Expedition map. They're going to get Urza's Mine. Alright, so they have Tron. If they try to slam a Karn here, we'll mana leak it. We're not in good position, in case that wasn't, very well. Okay, so this is Eldrazi Tron, which is really interesting. And this card was, this was actually bugged on Magic Online for the longest time. Reality Smasher, where if you cast a Path to Exile on it, you didn't have to discard. It would actually just, like, break the game. Which is, silly, really silly. We're going to, because our opponent just has 2 mana up right now, we're going to actually take advantage of that and mana leak it. We're not really sure how many cards we're going to be able to mana leak in this matchup. Because pathing it is a 2-for-1. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why we maybe should have kept in, or pathed it instead, is that we could have spell snared that. They would have had to have basically like exactly that, though. Alright, so that's a little rough. Be perfectly honest, that's a little rough. I didn't think that Mana Leak would be very good over the long term in this game. Because, like, now, I mean, Mana Leak is just, like, literally the worst card. Our outs to Chalice of the Void are basically just Cryptic Command. We've got to bounce it and then snare it maybe on the way down. It's not a lot of outs. We'll bring in the Ceremonious Rejection and the... Okay, they took the path, but there's a Chalice on one. I guess they just don't care about any of the other cards in our hand. Endbringer. Walking Ballista for 3. Okay. None of these things are any good for us. Alright. We'll play a land, we'll play an Augur. Augur will save us at least 2 damage, possibly 4 damage. Hopefully we can put a Miracle on top of our library, because we're going to need it. Alright, we're going to be able to shuffle one of these cards. Mana Leak's really bad. So is Path. Path's a little better than Mana Leak, I guess. So do it like that. Yeah, we're not in good shape here, guys. Real bad shape. Which is interesting, because if I took the other line, we would have been fine. But we also wouldn't have lost on the logic line. Like, I mean, like, look at how bad... it doesn't look like our opponent really has anything. They're going to attack with both. Yeah, we're gonna preserve our life total, so we're just going to block there. Because of the Walking Ballista, there's no reason to, like, play out the Riverwise Auger or anything like that. We'll just concede to, like, a Ulamog or something here. If we lose 2 of our lands, we can't. Walking Ballista for 5, that's 8. We need to draw, like... Our outs are just, like, so small. We need to draw a Miracle and then put it back on top of our library. That's, like, our only out. That doesn't feel too good. Even then, we still might be dead. I didn't do the math exactly. Okay, well. Put back Path to Exile. Put back Terminus. The problem is that we just can't cast any cards in our hand. Like, alright, our opponent's going to attacks. We're going to throw the Riverwise Auger in front of the biggest one, if they let us do it. Which it looks like they are going to let us do. That's nice of them. Alright. Save ourselves 5 damage this way. They could have just shot it, or 3 damage this way. Could have just shot it, and that would have done significantly less damage. Alright, it looks like they don't have anything in their hand. Oh yeah, we're just super dead right now. Yeah, this isn't... I don't know why I'm not gonna even show it to them. I'm just gonna concede the game. Yeah, they were just taking the time to do it then. Alright. Very bad matchup again. Regular Tron actually might even be a better matchup than this. That's how bad this matchup is. Alright, so we're going to bring in those two counter spells. All is Dust is a consideration. It is a good card against us. I don't know exactly how great it is against us. Verdict's fine. Yeah, as you saw that game, the Mana Leak got pretty bad. The Spell Snare has like very limited targets. I'm going to trim 2 Opt. And the reason why is basically I want to mitigate the effectiveness of a Chalice on 1. This hand has 1 land, a Mentor, a Path, and a Terminus. I don't think we can mulligan this kind of hand. It has pressure and it has disruption. It's got Serum Visions. If we can hit 2 lands, we can snap Serum Visions. I'm going to keep it. It might be wrong, but I mean, if we had like a 6-card hand that was like 4 lands, a Riverwise Auger, and like a Narset, is that a better hand than this? And the answer, I don't think, is yes. It's hard to tell. If this Serum Visions whiffs, and like, you know, we're like so low on, and we don't hit lands, this could be a big problem. All right. Disdainful Stroke's going to go to the bottom. Celestial Colonnade will go to the top. That means that we're definitely drawing a land next turn, which is good. And then we can Telling Time for the 3rd land. All right, so it would be very statistically unlikely at this point that we would miss our 3rd land, which is, I mean, that's kind of where we want to be. I found that Bluffing Miracles, our opponents usually, unless they're like, you know, play a lot of Legacy, don't really know what's happening with the Bluffing Miracles, but it will always stop on the first draw so that if we have one of those awkward times where we reveal a miracle and don't want to cast it, it's not super obvious to our opponent that that's what just happened. Alright, so we do want to cast the Telling Time here now because we need to hit that land. Okay, we did hit the land, which is good. And then we can shuffle these back. We'll put the Spell Snare on top because I guess I could see a situation where we want to draw it. We definitely don't want to draw the Jace. And then next turn we'll have an interesting situation where if we don't draw a land and our opponent doesn't play a big threat, if we want to Snapcaster Serum Visions to try to hit the 4th land. Which, you know, I mean, none of this is really where we want to be. We would like to have hit those lands. Alright, our opponent cast a Expedition map, that's totally fine. Another Expedition map, that's also fine. They're going to have like a lot of mana this game. Doesn't look like they have a threat. We will not take the Spell Snare on top. Land. Alright, good true land. Okay, so now we have an interesting decision here, which is basically, do we want to hold up Cryptic Command, or do we want to hold up Monastery Mentor plus Path? And I don't know what the answer is to that. Because our opponent hasn't played any threats, that means they probably have... Well, I don't know what they could have in hand with the kind of draw that they had there. I think we're gonna play the Monastery Mentor. The reason being is because Cryptic Command. I don't know what's happening here. All right, our opponent's getting another land. Sorry, the reason being is that if we don't do anything that turn and we just cast Cryptic Command, we don't really have a plan for the next turn. The next turn, there just like really is no plan. All right, so our opponent got Cavern of Souls. See, yeah, there we go. So if our opponent just got Cavern of Souls, I mean, we could bounce whatever they were playing. And a Ghost Quarter. All right, all these are fine. Island. All right. If they choose to fire off the Ghost Quarter, it'll be on the Celestial Colonnade, so I'm going to tap it now. An interesting play is if they try to like Spatial Contortion or Dismember the Monastery Mentor, we can path the Monastery Mentor in response, which would give us a land and a Monk token. Our opponent's got 9 mana. Less than 9 mana. No fear of a counterspell. What costs 9 mana? A Ballista for... Okay, Ballista for 4. Okay. Okay, so now we have a really interesting decision here, which is basically we're going to path something. We're either going to path the Walking Ballista or we're going to path the Monastery Mentor. If we path the Monastery Mentor, no, never mind. We're not pathing the Monastery Mentor. We're going to path the Walking Ballista in response, which means that the Walking Ballista will need to hit the Monastery Mentor once more and then also hit the Monk. Okay, so then we're gonna hit the Monk. So basically, we just traded Path and Monastery Mentor. Yeah, it was a good exchange for our opponent. I understand what happened. I explained that very poorly, but what they were doing made sense. All right. Alright, so our opponent played another power plant. Or I guess they played the first power plant. Alright. Whatever. Alright. Do we want to Snapcaster Telling Time here? For a land. Yeah, I think we do, actually. We know that they have Cavern of Souls. They have 6 cards in hand, all of which are probably really scary. This will let us leave off path. Put a card in my hand. That one. Put a card on top of my library. That one. Alright, so next turn we can Field of Ruin our opponent. Okay. Wow, that is a interesting move by our opponent to... Wow. Alright. I guess just no fear from our opponent. They got rid of our Snapcaster Mage. I'm not sure really what they were, super scared about. But, I mean, I guess they were, so... Take care of that. Get a Plains. And we'll just go ahead and take this opportunity to path their Ulamog. Alright, so they only had 1 wastes, which is good for us. So they're down to 5 mana. Or not, not down to, but they only have 5 mana. They have a Ghost Quarter and a Cavern of Souls in hand still. That's 2 of their 6 cards. Alright, they have a Ghost Quarter. If they want a Ghost Quarter our Celestial Colonnade, that's actually wonderful. Yeah, please, thank you. Island. This leads me to believe that they don't have very much going on. If we can find a use for this Spell Snare, we'll definitely take advantage of that. Cool. Alright, so we're not in great shape. Our opponent's not in great shape. Riverwise Auger is kind of wonderful here. It's a proactive threat. Or not, well, it's not, I mean, I guess technically it is a threat, but it's a proactive thing to do this turn. It's better than leaving up Cryptic Command, because we knew that our opponent basically wasn't going to do anything else. Alright, so I'm going to put back Search for Azcanta, and I'm going to put back Terminus on top, because we basically are fine with 1-for-1ing our opponent. They're going to be putting a Basilisk Collar on whatever they play anyway. And... the Riverwise Auger would basically 1-for-1. Or because the Riverwise Augers drew us a card, anything that they cast would be a 1-for-1. Alright, so that we still have there's still a Cavern of Souls, and well, I guess they use this Ghost Quarter. We know they use this Ghost Quarter. So we'll just dismiss all, but we know they have a Cavern of Souls in hand. Chalice on 1, we will Spell Snare. That's excellent. We actually found something finally that has use for that. Or we found a use for that, rather. I was going to try to cast Telling Time during our upkeep. We're not going to reveal that. We're going to attack our opponent. And we're going to play another Riverwise Auger. The reason why is because, once again, we know that they have Cavern of Souls, so our Cryptic Command is actually a lot worse than you might think. Alright, we're going to put back Terminus and Search for Azcanta. We would like to draw the Search for Azcanta first. And then that would allow us to bin the Terminus if we don't want it. We also have another Search for Azcanta in our hand, so hopefully we'll be able to flip one and then put the other one on top. Opponent drew another Ghost Quarter. Oh, that's actually perfect. We get to shuffle our library. Sweet. And cast a Telling Time. Wow, that was a very aggressive line by our opponent. Like, super aggressive. We would love to cast that Telling Time now. We're going to put the Entreat the Angels on the top of our library for sure. We're going to put the Path in our hand, and we're going to put the Entreat the Angels on top of our library. That's great. So our opponent basically decided that they thought that our hand was super scary, when in reality we were just dirtling around. So this is great. This is going to give us... Actually, we'll be able to put them on a 2-turn clock here. This turn and then the next turn. So our opponent will have to answer this board with like an All Is Dust or something like that. If they have an All Is Dust, that's fine. They basically just answered their 3 angels with... yeah, because the Riverwise Augers were drawing cards each turn. So if they want to cast an All Is Dust here, that's fine. And they don't have it, so we just won the game. Sweet. So our opponent actually bailed us out by ghost quartering us, which is really interesting. Kind of funny there, to be perfectly honest. We're just going to submit the same way that we had it there. Okay, well this hand has early interaction and a Field of Ruin, but is missing a blue source. Our opponent has mulliganed. We basically need to ask ourselves how important is blue mana in the first 3-ish turns to winning this game. And I think just because we have this Terminus here, that we can't really... So, like, if we draw a blue source on turns 1 or even turn 2, we're in really good shape. But if we don't, we're just going to straight up lose the game, I think. I don't see a situation where we can just win. Or we'll be able to win. So we have 21 other lands in our deck. Of those, I think 18 produce blue mana. There's 53 cards in our deck. That's not good enough odds. So we're going to mulligan this hand. This hand has blue mana and a Field of Ruin and a Path. So we'll keep it. The Entreat the Angels is awkward, as you can imagine. Scrying on the draw is pretty good. Do we want a Riverwise Auger? And I think we do, because we are going to eventually win the game by casting that Entreat the Angels, hopefully. We'll be able to draw that, and then we have a Serum Visions to look for lands. Pithing Needle. Okay, I mean, I guess they're going to name Field of Ruin. See what they name. In my opinion, I think that's just kind of a dead card for my opponent. With a Celestial Colonnade. Wow. Alright. So our opponent really thinks that this game's going to come down to us attacking them with our man lands that we don't have in hand. Which is interesting, because our opponent mulliganed to 6, so they were down a card already, and then they spent a whole card worrying about a card that we haven't even presented to our opponent yet. So I guess I'm fine with that exchange. Like, very fine with that exchange. They must have, like, natural Tron or something, because they have no fear of this Field of Ruin. They have, yeah, Chalice for that. Yeah, that's annoying. Alright. But we have our Riverwise Auger to hopefully shuffle some of this away. We have the Field of Ruin to disrupt their lands. Drawing lands would be nice. Okay, so we drew a land. That's good. We'll play the Plains. That's good. Playing the Plains here seems a little bit better than the Field of Ruin. I guess if they had another Pithing Needle, they could name... okay, so they have Tron here. See what their big threat is. We can decide on what we want. Okay, so Thought Not Seer. The best card in our hand by a long is the Telling Time, which is what they would take. So I'm actually going to cast the Telling Time and put the best card on top of our library. See, they're both bad. Alright. We'll put the Colonnade in hand and the Plains on top because we can't cast the Serum Visions. So this is what I was saying by in the intro where I said that Telling Time can either be the best or worst card in our deck, and in this case it's the worst. We would much rather have just anticipated and taken the Colonnade and put, no cards on the bottom. I mean, I guess the Entreat the Angels is also scary for the opponent, so maybe we shouldn't have fired it off there. But I mean, I guess we would have cast it at the end of the turn anyway, and it wasn't like we were hiding anything. So that's interesting. I don't really know what the correct play was there. I do know that the correct play here is we're definitely going to Field of Ruin our opponent now. And, we want to do it like now. There's not really any merit in hitting the tower. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It didn't really matter what we hit. I hit the tower because our opponent isn't floating mana that way, but they would have had access to 4 mana, like however you wanted to slice that. Alright, so our opponent's back down to 3 mana, which is a manageable number of mana. Once again, Pithing Needle doesn't shut off Celestial Colonnade's mana-producing abilities. It only shuts off its manland abilities. Our opponent, what did they try to surgically extract? They tried to surgically extract our Telling Time. They got countered by their own Chalice. So that's something. Whew. That's not good for us. Next turn we're going to cast the Riverwise Auger and hope to set up a Miracle. Miracle here would be great. Oh, okay. We're dead to any removal spell. We're dead to a lot of things here. Okay, so there's a Terminus on top. So we're going to do land Terminus, which would let us then play Island and counter their next spell and draw a card. Alright, so we're dead to Reality Smasher, dead to removal spell, dead to yeah. Alright, well, we'll block the Thought-Knot Seer. We kind of have to. We're also dead to a counter spell on the other thing. Hopefully they play a creature here. That'd be wonderful. Please play a creature. Thought-Knot Seer. Walking Ballista for 2. Okay, so we'll go to 1. Yes. Okay. Alright, so our opponent is empty-handed, but we can't take a hit for the rest of the game, which means that we have to counter every Reality Smasher, and every Walking Ballista, and have to kill our opponent reasonably quick. However, we have a bunch of cards in hand to our opponent's 0, even though we know that a lot of them are not very good. So we're going to leave up the Cryptic Command, and there's a very real chance that if our opponent taps out here, we're going to bounce the Chalice of the Void. We're casting a Chalice of the Void for 2. Is that something that we need to... Oh, so this is really interesting. We're going to now free our Chalice of the Void for 1 by doing this. So we're going to let this resolve. Okay. And then we're going to bounce the Chalice of the Void for 1. So they can't cast it again for 2, which is going to free up our opt and path to exile, which gives us the best chance at actually just like winning the game. Okay. All right, I feel pretty confident in this now. We are going to opt now because we want to possibly draw. All right, so that's 2 mana spell, so we can't cast it anymore. That's a 1 mana. So our opponent can't cast 2 mana spells either. So right now, just the Path to Exile is the only active card in our hand, but that seems pretty good. All right, our opponent's going to have this be countered, whatever this is. This is a Chalice for 1 that's going to get countered. Yeah, look at that. Our opponent doesn't know how their cards work, which is excellent, because if they would have cast another one for 2, it would have been bad. Sweeto Cheeto. Ooh. Snapcaster Mage. That gets countered by the Chalice, though. That's unfortunate. I got so excited for half a second there. Alright, so our only castable spell is Path to Exile. For reference, the reason why I let the Chalice for 2 resolve is because there wasn't a situation in which the Chalice for 1 would have... So if I would have countered the Chalice, I would have had to bounce the other one, and we didn't have a counter spell at the time. I didn't know I was drawing a spell snare. So at the time, our only way of interacting with both Chalices was to bounce the 1 and draw a card. There wasn't the ability to counter one, because they just would play the other one back for 1. We can't cast the anything here. Alright, I would love to opt now. We will bottom another land, and we draw another Mana Leak. Okay, so we've drawn pretty much every 2 in the whole deck. But we're still not dead to Reality Smasher, which is kind of the goal when I decided to hold on to the Path to Exile. Alright, what is our opponent casting? A Matter Reshaper. Okay. I don't want to path it now because we can theoretically block it. There's a few cards in our deck, like Riverwise Auger, that would let us block it, and I don't plan on using all of our mana anyway. Okay, so this is really good. Yeah, this is really, really, really good for us. Okay, so we're going to pass the turn now. So what we can do is we can path the guy, bounce the Chalice of the Void, and then cast one of our other spells. So this is good. So we're going to let our opponent attack. We're going to path the Matter Reshaper. Alright, this is good. Now we're going to return target permanent. What? No. Whoa. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Opponent Ghost Quarters a Colonnade, even though they know that they've shut down the Colonnade. So I will... get an island. Okay. We'll cast the Telling Time. We'll put that in my hand, that on top of my library. Okay. We'll play a Search for Escanta. Huh. I don't want to... 1, 2... So this is 6 mana. So we want to... I want to leave up 6 mana. Let's just put it that way. We're still dead to a lot of things. Expedition Map is not one of them. So it allows them to get a Cavern of Souls, which means that we can't counter a Walking Ballista. But I think that we are... Okay, a Buried Ruin. That's... Return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, which would be Walking Ballista. That's... Very interesting, I guess. End of turn here. I'm going to Snapcaster Mage. And I'm going to target the Cryptic Command. Okay. And then I'm going to cast it. So I don't want to return this, because then that will just whatchamacallit, it will counter the whole effect. So I'm going to return the Pithing Needle to the hand. Sorry, and draw a card. That's what I want to do. Return, draw a card. Buried Ruin is really not good for us, because it's going to require us to Snapcaster Mage yeah, we're going to need to leave a lot of mana up. We'll put that in the graveyard because it's not a land. Transform it. We already have one in hand. We don't want to... Okay, that's great. Alright, so we'll play the Field of Ruin, and we'll attack our opponent for 2. This is very good. Alright, we're not going to preemptively do anything with the Field of Ruin. If our opponent wants to name Azcanta, we're actually fine with that, with the Pithing Needle. We're not planning on countering it on the way down, I don't believe. Alright, they're getting back Walking Ballista. So now we need to counter any way that they can find Cavern of Souls or the Walking Ballista itself, if they just try to play it for, like, you know, a smallish number. What's this? A Reality Smasher. So our opponent has 3 mana up. I think I like casting the Snapcaster Mage here. And, So the problem here is that Cryptic Command is like our catch-all in this case. What I really want to do here is I want to Snapcaster Mage, Cryptic Command, counter it, draw a card, which would put us in a very good situation to kind of like turn the corner because we're getting power on the board. The downside of that is that currently that is our only card in our deck that interacts always as a counter. Or, you know, sorry, it's the only card we have in our hand or in our graveyard that interacts with the Walking Ballista. Because next turn, if our opponent casts it, it's a big problem for us. Huh. The downside to this is that if our opponent, if we let this Reality Smasher resolve, really in any way, it also goes very poorly for us if on our Azcanta we don't find exactly Path to Exile. If we activate Azcanta and we whiff, it's also really bad. Because then we can't snap Cryptic and cast Mana Leak. So I think, on average, what we're supposed to do here is cast Snapcaster Mage, target Cryptic Command, counter the Reality Smasher, and bounce the Snapcaster Mage. So that's what I'm going to do. That'll give us the ability to Mana Leak twice next turn, or once this turn. So we're going to cast the Cryptic Command. trying to think of what kind of clock this puts our opponent on. Counter target spell. Turn target permanent to its owner's hand. That and that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. If our opponent wants to kill the Snapcaster Mage in response, that's fine. If our opponent casts the Duder right here, that's great. Walking Ballista, X is 1. So now we have a big question, which basically is our Mana Leak more valuable than our Spell Snare? The answer is maybe. I'm going to cast the Spell Snare here because, I don't know, maybe I have like a Death Wish or something. Okay, that worked. Magic Online hated me for a second there. Alright, at the very end of the turn, I'm going to... we'll activate this Field of Ruin in response, getting rid of... I mean, there's a lot of things that we really can't beat here. I'm not sure if it's better to take them off. We'll just take them off the Eldrazi Temple, because they're going to get a Cavern of Souls, most likely, with whatever. So this will make it hard, or this will make our Mana Leak play better, if that makes any sense. And we'll get our last plains, I guess. I guess we have an island too. Let's get an island. Seems fine. So I'm not sure here if they want to name Azcanta or if they want to name Snapcaster Mage or Celestial Colonnade. Once again, because we're at 1 mana or 1 life, I don't think we can tap out. All right, they named Azcanta the Buried Ruin, right? The Sunken Ruin, and that's what this is called. Okay. Continue. We're going to enter combat. Attack with the Snapcaster Mage. And then we're going to play Serum Visions. We have 3 minutes, which hopefully will be enough to... Oh, this is kind of interesting. I like this, actually. So we're going to top and top that. And then we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to cast the Riverwise Auger. Yeah, I like this a lot, actually. Okay. We're going to put Flooded Strand on top, and then the second Auger, and then the Field of Ruin. So Field of Ruin will let us shuffle. It'll also let us leak, snap, leak in like the worst case scenario. We also have a Disdainful Stroke up for anything bigger. And we are presenting a very serious clock now on our opponent. Chalice the Void on 1. I think I'm just going to go ahead and snap snare this. I don't see too much downside in that. Because we can mana leak pretty much anything else they play. Or path anything. There's Spell Snare. Warping Whale the Snapcaster Mage. Okay, that's fine. Would love to cast the Spell Snare. Spell Snare that. That one right there. Alright, and then we are going to want to shuffle, I believe. So we will get rid of the Eldrazi Temple, which will actually cut them off from being able to cast Reality Smasher. And we're shuffling our library. Getting our last plains out of there. which is nice. Our opponent is on a 2-turn clock, and we have both Disdainful Stroke, Mana Leak, and Path Up even after attacking. We do not want to cast that. Ooh, no. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Alright, so we lose if our opponent's last cards are Walking Ballista and the other thing. The Walking Ballista. So Cavern of Souls, Walking Ballista. Is how we lose this game. And look at that, we won. I think that was navigated very well. I'm pretty sure someone with maybe less experience in this deck would have played a little bit differently than me. Not trying to like toot my own horn here, but I think that we had to play that almost exactly perfect in order to win the game. And I'm pretty sure we did. So I'm happy with my play there. It's not a good matchup for us, just because we are not able to interact with our opponent's quick starts in the slightest. Like a turn 2 or turn 3 creature is very, very bad for us. I honestly think that regular Tron might even be a better matchup than that. Alright, we wanted the die roll. Alright, this is a very reasonable hand. We finally get, like, a reasonable hand. It's got spells, it's got interaction, it's got cantrips. We're just going to play Island Serum Visions. We want another land. I wouldn't normally cast the Serum Visions here if I didn't know exactly what we want, but we also have Spell Snare for next turn. Alright, so Search for Azcanta is nice. I'm just gonna top, and we don't have to draw. We don't have to draw the path if we don't want to. Conversely, we can draw the path and path something next turn if we want to. So we definitely want the land. If our opponent's playing, okay, looks like some sort of control deck. Possibly Humans, I think, plays like 1 Flooded Strand control deck, so they're also going to Serum Visions. Sweet. All right, so we are going to absolutely drop a Search for Azcanta and hopefully bury our opponent, because Search for Azcanta is nuts in this matchup. We're not sure if our opponent's just straight blue-white or if they are on some sort of Jeskai or even Esper builds, but the Flooded Strand into Hollowed Fountain draw means that it's probably like 60% or more to just be regular blue-white. Alright, so we don't want to draw that path that's on top of our library, almost certainly, so we're going to fetch that away now. If this is red, our life total will matter, so I think getting the Hollowed Fountain is fine, but if red is what our opponent's on, it's probably not great. So we're going to play the Search for Azcanta. If our opponent plays the Search for Azcanta back, that's too bad, because I guess we had the Spell Snare in hand, so maybe we could have waited one more turn, but I think I'm happy with this play. We're just hopefully going to bury our opponent in card advantage generated by the Search for Azcanta. Our goal now is like literally to do nothing other than cantrip for, you know, a long time. Riverwise Auger. Yeah, let's put that in our graveyard. We want to draw more lands. Cool. We drew another land. Let's play Serum Visions. Opponent wants to Mana Leak our Serum Visions. I think we're fine with that, honestly. Like, I don't care. Cool. All right, we'll play Tapped Hollowed Fountain. Seems that's incredibly aggressive on our opponent's side that they wanted to fire off a Mana. I mean, I guess Mana Leak isn't great in this matchup as it goes later, but that there seems really, really aggressive. We just want more lands again. Field of Ruin. Do you want to put that in your graveyard? No. I'd love to draw Field of Ruin. And we'll play it. Alright, so our opponent has more cards in hand than we do, but we have a Search for Azcanta, which means that our draws are getting consistently better. The Terminus isn't great. We would like to eventually shuffle that away. Alright, so our opponent is on red, which is an interesting development. It makes me want to cast this, or use this Field of Ruin now on their red source, because they just shocked it in. This also is an aggressive play from me. My opponent aggressively used the Mana Leak. I think it's time for me to aggressively use the Field of Ruin. They probably just have one red basic, and if we can get them off that, then they can't fetch for it anymore. And our Field of Ruins, especially if they're they're on the 3-color build, won't do all that much. They might have like a loot house or something like that we can get rid of at some point, but we have 2 more Field of Ruins. Trying to think of what card we would spell snare here other than Snapcaster Mage, and I think the answer is really just Snapcaster Mage. That's what this is, just a heat-sinking missile for a Snapcaster Mage. We'll get an island. Cool. Alright, so our opponent didn't have a red source. That's actually just great for us. I don't think we want another Flooded Strand. We'll play this land. Now we have 5 lands to our opponent's 4 lands. I don't know what our opponent could fire off end in turn. Cryptic Command, bounce the search for Azcanta. Well, I mean, that's not great. I'm not sure if I want to fight over this or not, but I think it's... Might as well fight over it because it's such a huge tempo advantage if we can get there. Okay, so we didn't. So we'll take that, and we'll put the Misty on top of our library. Return that to our hand. That's... I mean, there's worse things that could have happened there than that. That's... Because our opponent more or less will have to... So if our opponent is on Spell Quellers, which, I mean, we haven't really seen any sort of aggression out of our opponent, but if our opponent is playing the card Spell Queller, this could go very bad for us. Also, if they have another Cryptic Command, this could go bad for us. So maybe we don't want to cast the Search for Azcanta. We're running out of fetchable lands. We only have 1 more after this of blue lands, so I'm going to do it now. I'll cast the Serum Visions now. We have an Opt. Bottom. I mean, this matchup is all about hitting your land drops, so I guess by that token, I probably want the plains. Maybe. Okay. Sign me up. Opponent has 1 more card in hand than us, but they're off one of their colors. At the end of the turn, they'll get it with their Flooded Strand. We might be in a situation now where we can force some action through by casting the Snapcaster Mage and then casting a Telling Time. We could opt first to do that. Our opponent firing off that Mana Leak so early in the game is still very unexpected. All right. The other thing is that we need to play a little bit fast, because our opponent's ahead of us on clock. And I'm a much faster player than this. It's just the concept of recording plus that. All right, so our opponent has Colonnades, too. I guess, I don't know, earlier when I was saying that there wasn't really any reason to... That was just wrong. There was a lot of reasons for us to hold that. But the fact that they shocked in that red source and then really couldn't do anything about it was interesting. The other thing is that the fact that they don't really seem to need red very much makes me wonder if they were just splashing that red somehow, like if it was a for maybe like Field of, or not, something strange out of the sideboard. Like I don't know, I'm very curious about that now. All right, and opting doesn't really make any sense there because we know the card on top of our library. All right, so here I think I want to get down the Search for Azcanta. I think that's actually even more important than the Jace. And we can, we have double counter spells that we can play around here. So if our opponent tries to Mana Leak it, we can pay. If they try to, like, Logic Knot it, we can Mana Leak it. And then if they try to, like, negate that, okay, cool, we're good. Sack our opponent for 2. Our opponent is going to cast their own Snapcaster Mage and probably try to opt. So we're going to try to get value out of the Spell Snare here. The Spell Snare itself was losing, quite a bit of value. And I told you it was a heat-seeking missile for a Snapcaster Mage. Worked well there. We'll opt in addition to that, because if we hit a land, I'd like to play it. We'll do it now. If our opponent wants to counter this opt, that's fine. Okay, cool. So we'll drew the land. Alright, so we have our opponent on, a clock. It's not like not an amazing clock. We'll see what our opponent does with this Flooded Shrine. If they don't get a red source, then I'm very confused as to why there's a red source in their deck. If they're not really, like, on Jeskai. Which, I mean, they have 4 cards in hand. We saw the one Steam Vents. There is a chance that they're using it to cast, like, a Blood Moon or a Crumble to Dust out of the sideboard for, like, the Tron matchup or something like that. Because this doesn't... I mean, they keep playing lands that can get red lands and then just not getting red lands, which is, I don't know, it just seems a little absurd to me. They have their own search for Azcanta. We're kind of at parry. Okay, so they do have red in their deck, and they're shocking for it. What are they casting here? Oh, it's a Through the Breach deck. Well, we're at 16. We kind of have to mana leak that. If they have their own counterspell here, then, you know, good for them. We'll sacrifice the 5 islands and a Snapcaster Mage, and hope to survive at 1 damage, or 1 life. Okay. No. I understand what's going on. Our opponent's playing Breach. Alright, so we have a really interesting decision here, which is basically, do we think our opponent can deal us 1 damage? It's basically a question of how many lands should we sacrifice. And can we win the game with 2 lands and a Snapcaster Mage? That is 4 turns of attacking. That seems ambitious. Or we can have 3 lands, and if we draw the 4th, then we have a Jace. And then theoretically, we can draw more lands. Like, we have to rebuild. And, I mean, we're dead, I guess, next turn to the Celestial Colonnade. So our outs are even more specific than that. So we can't even play the Jace. So I think we have to just sacrifice all of our blue-only lands. Yeah. Go to 1, draw exactly Path to Exile off the top. Or Field of Ruin. Drew a Field of Ruin. If our opponent doesn't have, like, bolts in hand, we're in good shape. Our opponent's thinking, we're not going to be able to tap out next turn. If we leave up the Field of Ruins at the end of turn, we'll get rid of the Celestial Colonnade. You guys will have to comment on what you think the correct plays were at some points in this. I don't know. Honestly, it didn't occur to me that they could be on Breach. I thought they were on, like, blue-white and then splashing, just because they didn't seem to be very interested in getting that red out of their deck. If they have a bolt here or something like that, we lose. But, I mean, we can't play around things just because they, our opponent might have them at this point. We are 100% at the mercy, more or less, of our opponent. Not drawing a bolt or a Snapcaster Mage or, like, an infinite number of cards. Like, we need to fade, like, two more draws, and we need to just slam threats. There's no reason for us to use the Field of Ruin here, I don't believe. So we're just gonna play this Jace. If it gets countered, that's fine. I didn't mean to turn. I'm turning off auto yields. Cryptic Command counter and draw a card. That's fine. See, we needed to force our opponent into doing stuff like that, because if they bounced our Snapcaster Mage, it's probably over. If they bolt us here, we just lose. That's fine. Opponent's opting. They probably should have opted first, because if they would have drawn a better counterspell, they probably should have used it there. Okay, Snapcaster Mage. So we're dead to that, too. That's, oh well. Alright, so Breach. Breach is actually, I would say, a little bit harder than most of the other types of control that our opponent could have. So one thing that's nice is we're going to trim quite a few of our board sweeper path plan. So here's a very easy 8 cards right there. Boarding out the paths might be a little bit ambitious, but I don't really see a situation in which I would want a Path to Exile against specifically that Breach deck. Like, I'm not going to Path to Snapcaster. I'm not going to... theoretically, I guess if they board in, like, a Keranos or something like that, we would have to Path that. But, we just have to kind of fade a Keranos. So these 8 are going out right away. And we're going to bring in this 8. So there's 7, and then the 8 is the Dispel. So now we need to decide whether or not we want the Negates, and I think we do. I think Negate's just better than Mana Leak in this matchup, so we're going to bring in both Negates. Other thing that's interesting is that we don't really need the Telling Times, and I think I might cut the Telling Times, honestly. I think I might cut the Telling Times, and I'm going to bring in a Disdainful Stroke and one of the Mana Leaks, because we're not really setting up any miracles. All we have left in terms of miracles is Entreat the Angels, and Entreat the Angels isn't super important to set up like that. Actually, there's a chance that we don't even want the other Riverwise Auger. That's probably... yeah. Oh, well, at this point, that's too late, but that's okay. Alright, this hand's great. We got land, we got Search for Azcanta. We need to be a little bit cognizant of our life total. As you saw last game, we were luckily at 16. But if we drop ourselves below 15, it can be a problem. We don't want to just lose to... Emrakul. Alright, so our opponent plays an island and passes. We will... I think we're just going to get basic here, basic planes, because once again we want to be careful about our life total, and we're hoping to play Geist next turn. Hopefully, by putting out the Search for Azcanta, we're making our opponent have to act quicker than they want to, because once again they're just going to die in or drown in all kinds of board. Okay, so our opponent's opting. This is wonderful, which means that we're going to be able to get down our Geist next turn. We'll probably be shocking for it, unless we draw a land off the top that's not a colorless land. Oh, speaking of which, we do want to draw lands. Plains. Plains is definitely the worst land here, but I don't think we want to put it in our graveyard. This will let us just search for basic island here. Because we're never going to need more than 2 planes. So now we have our opponent on a clock. It's not like an amazing clock, like, woo, but it's a clock for sure. I think we want another blue source with our Search for Azcanta. I don't know what we would not... Like, we want blue source, but we also want action. So I'll have to see what the card is on top. If it's Entreat the Angels, we'll put it on the bottom. If it's... or not on the bottom, in the graveyard. If it's Entreat the Angels, put it in the graveyard. If it's... actually, I don't really know what else. If our opponent plays like a board sweeper here, that's fine. Just a 1-for-1. Our opponent snap opting. Okay. Alright, so we have... Our opponent's playing it main phase. So that means that they don't really have an answer to this Geist. Does that mean that we want to play this any differently? They put a card on top and then drew it. Put Spell Snare into my graveyard. No. I'm gonna opt. Put that on top. Draw that. So now I have a big question here, which basically, do I want to trade this Snap or this Geist for a Snapcaster Mage and get in 4 damage? It just feels so bad. But we don't really have any answers to Snapcaster Mage anymore because I took him out. We were hoping that, it was a good line by our opponent. It was a very good line by our opponent. I think we're going to trade the Geist for it. Now, let me know in the comments if you disagree with this line. I think I like it because my plan now is to cast Snapcaster Mage at the end of this turn here and attempt Opt. If our opponent's going to counter the Snapcaster Mage, I'll probably Spell Snare it or something. I don't know. That's a very aggressive line, though. Our opponent has so many cards in hand. We just can't sit around in this matchup because our opponent has the ability to basically just like one-shot kill us if we don't have the counter magic up for it. Looks like our opponent was low on... I mean, they topped something, so I don't know if they can be low on lands if they topped a card before with the Opt. Because they Snapcaster and then they cast Opt. Alright, our opponent just played a land and is going to pass. So I guess we will too. Or not, we'll just pass 2. We're not going to force Snapcaster into 4 mana like that. Hollowed Fountain. Yes, we'll put that in the graveyard. Okay, we drew our Spell Queller. That's a good draw. I think I'm going to try to get that down and put a clock on the opponent, even if they don't cast a spell. If they do cast a spell here, I will definitely... Yeah, look at that. Oh, this is a gaseous play. Spell Quell the Cryptic Command. So now our opponent is going to be aggressive in trying to get rid of this Spell Queller, which is, very, very nice. There's a chance they can do it. If they just have, the card Lightning Bolt, our hand's very weak to that. And then they'll, yeah. So maybe we should, I don't know. Lightning Bolt's bad. I don't know why they'd still have that card in. I don't think they were expecting us to be on a Queller plan. I think they thought that they could maybe get a counter spell out of that or something like that. Not a Spell Queller. But we're putting a clock on our opponent. There's a chance that negating that was correct. Because I don't like... Yeah, look at that. So... They have Path to Exile. Even though we didn't show them any creatures last game, they still have a Path to Exile. So, am I supposed to negate this and hope they don't have another counter spell? It's so bad for us if they have another counter spell. But it's so bad for us if we let this resolve. Because they're going to bounce our Search for Azcanta. Yeah, I think we just have to negate and hope they don't have anything. It's just a bad position for us. They had that Snapcaster Mage, and now they're just burying us. Oh, look at that. They didn't have anything. That was a very aggressive line by us also. They just blew a counterspell on that Search for Azcanta, which led me to believe that they... Yeah. But, I mean, I'm fine with that exchange. We got rid of a Path to Exile, which is a 1-mana answer to the Spell Queller. Looks like they might be trying to play something here. They might have had Snapcaster Mage in hand. Now they're going to Snap Path it, which I think that at that point is probably fine. Because then they're down to 4 cards in hand. Do we get another land? Yeah, okay. So that's exactly what it is. And they have maybe Dispel as a backup. I would love to use that ability. We're going to get another Plains. Or sorry, another Island. They get to cast the Cryptic Command now. They'll bounce their Search for His Counter and draw a card, but that puts it back to 5. Okay, so we got them to use a Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, I think I'm happy about this. Because we just get to play the Search for His Counter again. And then hopefully, once again, continue to bury them in card advantage off of the Search for His Counter. Ooh, we get to cast both of them? That is wonderful. All right. That was a great draw. If our opponent wants to spend the whole turn revving up a Celestial Colonnade to attack the Jace, that's fine. But the Jace isn't going to get any better than that. It's not going to. It didn't need a counter spell. This is good. This is very good for us. If our opponent wants to tack down the whole Jace, it'll spend their whole turn, and they'll have to attack with both creatures at it, which will deal it exactly. Oh, that'll only deal it 4 damage. Never mind. Never mind. My math is just poor. They need that plus a bolt somehow, which they can't really do. So this Jace was just excellent right here. That was probably the best draw in the deck. It was either that or Narset. Those were 2 of the best draws in the deck. If our opponent wants to try to bounce the Search for His Counter again, yeah, okay, so they don't have a land for it, so they must be Serum Visioning, unless they have a land. Yeah, okay, so they're gonna cast Serum Vision. I'm fine with this. They bottomed, which means that they're still looking for lands, probably. So they have 6 cards in hand, all of which are spells. Once again, probably. Nope, they found a land. They have their own Search for His Counter. Okay. Geist is not very good on this board. Ay. No. Yes. 1, 2, 3. Play the Geist. And we're going to tick up the Jace here again. That means that neither Snapcaster Mage can attack through the Geist, which is kind of cool. And they probably won't want to. And then we can, at the very end of the turn, draw a card off of the Azcanta. Our opponent opts. I'm not really sure if taking the Geist there was correct, once again, guys, but it provides a very good shield for this Jace. If we could ever ultimate this Jace, we just get their Emrakul, which means that we'll, there's theoretically a chance that won't be enough to win the game, but I don't really see how that could be the case. Our opponent is definitely ahead of us right now. It's they have better lands than us. They have the same Search for His Counter, although it's not flipped, and they have more cards in hand. I didn't want to keep Paths in this matchup because it's not good against like 99% of our opponent's draws. It just so happens that our opponent front-loaded all their Snapcaster Mages. We only play 2 Snapcaster Mages. They're definitely going to get more value than us off of the Snapcaster Mage. Alright, they chose to not put the card in the library, on top of the library. That's really interesting. I have no idea what that card could be, because it seems like they should be prioritizing getting that. If they have Cryptic Command and they want to bounce something here, that's fine, but we are so far behind that we just need to we just need to use this when possible. I guess we're taking Cryptic. It's probably better than Disdainful Stroke because we can use it offensively. Alright. Ooh, okay, Vendilion Click was a really good draw. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to minus this Jace. And we're going to take whichever pile has more cards in it. Sweet. Sweet. I'm putting that card pile in my hand. I will play the Colonnade. Cool. Alright, so I don't want to draw step click my opponent because there's not... The only thing we would click in response to a Through the Breach. That's something that we would click in response to. Because then we could just take the Emrakul and then the Through the Breach doesn't really do much. They might cast the Through the Breach here. Yeah, okay, so they are casting Through the Breach. And in response, we're going to cast a Vendilion Click. Because the way that Through the Breach is worded is that they won't get... Or they will get to keep the Emrakul through the end of their next turn. Because it says end step. They sacrifice the next end step. So we're going to target our opponent. If our opponent has 2 Emrakuls in hand, I'm just going to tilt off and probably close the screen for the rest of my life. Okay, so they just have the 1 Emrakul. So we will take that. They thought that we would counter this Through the Breach and then cast another Through the Breach on their turn. So they can put a Snapcaster Mage into play here if they want to. It'll last until their... Okay, so they did do it. It'll last until their the end of their next turn. That's kind of funny. Okay, they're going to opt here. That's really funny. I like that. Alright, so if they drew an Emrakul there, it's bad for us. On the plus side, by casting this opt, which they're not doing because they want to flip the search. Nope, they are doing it. Okay. So now they're not going to flip the search, which means that they need to have drawn a land and an Emrakul in order for us to not be able to Cryptic counter the Emrakul and draw a card. I mean, we could cast that, but they have Mana Leak. So they would need land and that. So they put a card on top of their library, which is scary. That means they're probably not going to put it on the... Or no, sorry, it's the card that they drew. So I don't know what they're going to do here. They put a Flooded Strand in their graveyard. So that means that they probably drew a land last turn because they don't want another land. So the card they put on top was a land. So we could still lose to land Through the Breach, Emrakul. Okay. Opponent's definitely going to attack with the Snapcaster Mage that has haste. Who are they going to attack at? They're attacking them all at Jace. Okay, that's fine. Jace down. So we know our opponent has a Mana Leak. What we basically need to do is figure out whether or not we want to trade that Mana Leak for a spell, or if we want to play around it. Alright, so our opponent did opt a land to the top. The Snapcaster Mage is going to be sacrificed. I think... No, sorry. I want to let the Snapcaster Mage die, and then when I get priority again... I want to... Okay, now I will use the Searcher card. So what I didn't want them to do is use a Cryptic command to bounce the Snapcaster Mage and draw a card. Because that seems awful. Alright, so we're going to take here... Probably the Logic Knot. We'll just take the Logic Knot. That's fine. The Narset would be good if we weren't in like a commanding position like we are right now. All right, so we'll play that. I think I'm interested here in just attacking. If our opponent wants to rev up the Colonnade, I actually might not even stop that. Oh, no, actually I will stop it. Yeah, I'll stop it. I'll Cryptic Command, bounce that, and draw a card or something like that. Yeah, because we know our opponent has... Alright, so our opponent is trying to activate the Celestial Colonnade here. So what I'm going to do is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to return this colonnade, right? This colonnade to your hand and draw a card. Okay. So this is going to drop my opponent to 1. We play a Colonnade. Oh no, we played a land already. And we pass the turn. Okay. So our opponent's dead to a lot of stuff here. Opponent put another Breach in the graveyard, and we'll probably flip their Escanta now. The only things we're going to counter here is something that would bury us in card advantage. Oh, I don't even know. I don't really know what it could be. Alright. So we're just gonna pass the turn because our opponent needs to somehow I don't know if I should draw with Escanta. I guess there's not really any downside to doing it, so we'll do it. Because our opponent needs to block with the Colonnade, one of the things, and remove something else. And I don't really know how they're going to do that. Alright, so we're gonna enter combat. And we'll attack with both of these. And now there's 2 flyers that our opponent has to answer. Okay, and our opponent concedes. They only have 7 minutes left. We have 10 minutes left on the clock. Alright, so now a fair question is, do we want to change anything? Do we want to bring in any number of paths? The only thing we saw was Snapcaster Mage. And if I have to Snapcaster, or path a Snapcaster Mage, I'm just going to feel very, very sad inside. Yeah, nothing about that is like makes me be like, oh yeah, that's what I should do, is I should bring in a path. Double check to see if the recording is still working. Our opponent's gonna try to sideboard a little bit differently. I didn't see anything that game that made me say, oh, you know what, I should probably sideboard myself a little bit differently, other than probably cutting a Riverwise Auger and bringing in another Mana Leak. Let's do that. Our opponent's gonna be on the play. They're gonna be the one pressuring us. Yeah, I think I like this. You can comment if you would like to do something. Like, I don't want to bring in Wheel. Because Wheel's just a bad card, and yeah. Alright, In a control mirrors, you almost always want to keep 7 if they're remotely playable, and like this is very playable, so we'll keep it. Here, because we drew that spell snare, I'm going to shock in this Hallowed Fountain and either opt or cast the spell snare. We can't have our opponent land a Search for Azcanta. Our deck's not really set up to beat a Search for Azcanta. The only removal spells we have for it are Cryptic Commands. We need to bounce it. We don't have like Detention Spheres like normal blue-white does. Alright, we're going to opt end of turn. Negate seems fine. I guess we'll take that. We are going to want lands now. We should prioritize getting lands. Once again, I'm just going to play this and pass just because of how devastating a Search for Azcanta would be if our opponent played one. We have another land. If we didn't have another land in hand, then we would be forced to more or less cast the Serum Visions, but I think here it's fine. One more turn, leaving up the Spell Snare. If our opponent plays a Geist or something here, I'm also going to be really sad. Yeah, see, look, there's Search for Azcanta. We're going to Spell Snare it. If they have exactly Dispel, I'll be sad. Sweet, look at that. A+ play. If we had one more land, Retreat would be amazing. Let's cast Serum Visions. That's real bad for us. Those are like the 3 worst cards that could have been on top of our library. Would have been second Entreat, Logic Knot, and something else. If they want to opt here, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not going to counter opt. So we were ahead when we were able to Spell Snare that, but now we're not really anymore. Alright, our opponent is fine on lands. They're playing around Mana Leak. I don't... See, like, in that case, what if he drew a tap land? Wouldn't you want to play the tap land? They topped. Make this a little smaller. I don't know why it's so big. Land. Alright, we drew a land. That's excellent. Alright, our opponent's opting. Manly or Scalding Tarn, okay. Alright, so this is our first big test, which is basically how do we think this game is going to go? If we think this game is going to go that we're just going to draw lands into infinity, then what we should do here is we should we should just do nothing, sorry. If we don't think we're going to draw land next turn, which I doubt we are, just because we don't have very many lands in this deck, and we haven't seen very many, so we want a Cryptic Command, bounce their Celestial Colonnade, draw a card now. That's obviously going to hit a counter spell. But we'd much rather be in that position than a position where we are basically doing nothing next turn, because we're not going to be able to just hold up Cryptic Commands. We have 2 of them in hand. We're going to return this Colonnade to their hand, draw a card. If they counter this, that's fine. Like, Mana Leak it, I'm totally cool with that. If we get to draw a card off of it, that's amazing. But we're making a tempo play here. Our opponent has a combo kill, and we don't. And we have a very poor hand, and we really can't beat any sort of reasonable play out of our opponent. Alright, so Snapcaster Mage is fine because they didn't have a counterspell in their graveyard. If they had a counterspell in their graveyard, I think I would have been a lot less likely to make this kind of play. Alright, our opponent's flashing back and opt. If we draw a land off the top, I'm entreating for 1. I'm like almost guaranteed that that's probably the correct play too. Did our opponent draw a counterspell? They're certainly shocking themselves like they did. Disdainful stroke. Okay. Am I snapcasting and opt? Because I really need to draw land. It's either, so am I snapcasting and then am I snapcasting opt or Serum Visions? And I think I need to hit a land, which means that it's more likely that I'll find one off of opt. But I also want to set up lands for the following turns. I think I have to snap for an opt. So this gives me 2 looks at a land. The other one only gives me 1 look at a land. Yeah. Not good. Alright, so we're dead if they have the combo here. Like, we're not dead, but we have no permanence, and they'll have a lot of permanence. I think that's just bad running. We kept a good hand. I maybe should have not kept the one. I scryed a negate, I believe, or a mana leak to the top. It was one of those two. And as you see, we have not cast that card yet. So there's a chance that that was wrong on my part. I'm ready to admit that it was probably a... we had another land in hand at the time and a Serum Visions, and then we Serum Visions, we drew an Entreat, and then bottomed 2 cards and still couldn't find a land. So, like, overall, I'm not super upset about how we played. Like, our opponent's casting Electrolyzes and stuff. They only have 4 cards in hand. It's not the worst. Alright, I'm going to cast the Riverwise Auger, hope to hit a land, and then put the Entreat on top of the library. I think that's my play here. Cool. Alright, so we're going to put this on top of the library. Sorry, no. We're going to put this on top of the library, this on top of the library, play that tapped. I wanted to hold the other Entreat in hand because there's a good chance that we can just cast like an Entreat for like 1 or 2 and win the game that way. Cryptic Command, bouncing the Colonnade, and what, drawing a card? Okay. Yeah, we'll block that. Alright, so now here we have to figure out, is this going to go tapped or untapped? Untapped. Snap opt. So we'll Entreat for 2 here, I think. So I don't know how scared we should play. Our opponent bottomed, topped. That's so much cantripping. This leads me to believe that our opponent has the combo. And if we tap out for the Entreat, then we lose. But are we winning the game otherwise? I'm not sure we are. I don't want to cast it. I think that casting it there is not, it's not a trap, but it's not good, I guess. Yeah, this will leave us up 2 counterspells. Okay. I think once again at the end step we're going to fire off a cryptic command. Search for Escanta. No. We will negate that. Opponent plays another land. Passes the turn. Okay. We will draw this Plains. We will cast Serum Visions. I think we're not firmly ahead here, but we're certainly not losing anymore. Bottom these two, and we'll pass the turn. Been a very interesting game. Opponent plays another land. They only have 3 cards in hand. Alright, if our opponent, as soon as our opponent begins combat here, we will try to save some damage here by casting this cryptic command to return this colonnade and draw a card, because they already played a land for the turn. If they counter this, that's fine, because then we'll probably get to entreat, and okay. Doesn't really look like, with what our opponent has presented to us so far, that they can beat 2 angels. Especially if we want to cast 2 angels now and then 2 angels next turn. Tapping out is really risky, but at the same time, I think it's probably right. Just going to hard cast this for 2 angels. We've been dead to them having, Through the Breach for the longest time. Through the Breach Emrakul. If they counter this, that's not great, but it's fine. Alright. I will play a Field of Ruin and a Geist, and I think I'm going to pass the turn. I'll get in with 1 angel. I lied. We're getting in with 1 angel. I don't think getting in with 2 angels really does anything. If our opponent wants to trade a colonnade for an angel, that's fine with us. One of the reasons why we have so many angels. Or, sorry, why we kept the second entreat. Opponent wants to do that, that's fine. At the end of the turn, we're going to Field of Ruin their Celestial Colonnade. Destroy that. Pay this and that. Let's get an island. Let's get in there with these guys. This line here doesn't just leave us dead to Through the Breach Emrakul, because we can cast the Celestial Colonnade to block it, or activate the Celestial Colonnade to block it, and sacrifice basically all of our lands. Alright, and look at that, we won the match. Alright, well that was a grueling 3 matches. We'll continue with match number 4. I appreciate you guys hanging out this far. I hope you find it relatively interesting. I will 100% recommend that you guys watch this on a little bit of speed. I tried to talk through all my lines, and yeah, we're around 2 hours and 40 minutes. Hopefully I'll cut a little bit of it out, but it's still going to be a absurdly long match. I think the last 2 matches we had to play exactly perfect, or we would have lost. Like no doubt. I think both. And I mean, I still probably missed some lines. So I guess exactly perfect is not necessarily what I meant. But we had to play it. We had to play it pretty exact. We should have lost both of those. And I mean, we almost were able to beat Dredge. Like the fact that even Rest in Peace wouldn't have been good enough to beat Dredge is kind of absurd, and also the fact that we were almost able to get there game 1 is kind of amazing. So we're, if the Terminus was on the top of the library instead of the second from the top, we would be in amazing shape. Alright, on the draw, 2 Ops, Mana Leak, Narset. I think I'm keeping this because we have interaction on turn 2, and our opponent's mulliganing. Alright, our opponent's playing probably some sort of Sun and Moon deck, which means that they're going to play a Colonnade or a Chalice on 1 here, and we're going to be really sad. Yeah, Chalice on 1. That makes us really sad. Alright, we'll move here. We'll play a Plains, and we'll pass the turn. We will Mana Leak the Blood Moon. Alright, we need blue mana in the worst way here. Unfortunately, if that was 1 card further, we would have been okay. I don't think our opponent can beat a Narset Ultimate. What's this? A Chalice of the Void for 2. Alright. Well, let's destroy your needle thingy. We'll get an island. That's fine. And like I said, our opponent is going to have to meaningfully interact with this card, which is 100% not the forte of our opponent's deck. Would love to draw that opt now so that we don't actually have to draw the opt. Okay, our opponent's plays in Hiri, which is not great for us. That doesn't really do anything for us. Let's look at the top card of our library. It's a land. I think we're okay with that. Alright, so our opponent's drawing and then discarding. Alright, we can't counter anything this turn that our opponent plays. Next turn, we're hoping our opponent will ultimate the Nahiri, and then we will use the Cryptic Command to tap the Emrakul and draw a card. What did they do with that? They put it on the bottom. So it's probably still worth Field of Ruining this now, which will let us get another island. I'm going to cast something. Cast out. Well, there wasn't much we could do about that anyway. well, looks like we're just passing the turn here. So if our opponent... Okay, our opponent is going to ultimate the Nahiri, getting the Emrakul, and at the beginning of combat, we are going to cast the Cryptic command. We're going to bounce the Chalice on 1 and tap the Emrakul. Wait. Return target permanent to owner hand. Tap all creatures. Return target permanent. Boom. Tap all creatures. And our opponent concedes to that. Conceded the match to that. Alright, guys. Well, we cashed this league. We're 3-1. I'm not sure if I've ever had an opponent that far ahead suddenly be that far behind and just concede a match like that. And that was kind of impressive, honestly. That, like, I mean, we didn't have any sort of clock on our opponent. Yeah, we'll keep this hand. This hand's great. Because we have the double Serum Visions, it's kind of awkward to not cast one on turn 1, but we don't really know what our opponent's playing. Yeah, I don't like hands like this. Because we could easily Serum Visions as if our opponent is playing a fair deck. Like, we could do a great Serum Visions. We could keep, like, Land Counterspell or even, like, Land Mentor or something like that on top of our deck, assuming our opponent's playing, like, a fair deck. But if our opponent's playing, like, an unfair deck, there's a chance that we want to leave a Miracle 2 cards down. Like if they're playing Dredge or something, which, I mean, our opponent's mulliganing to 2, so it's more than likely that they're on Dredge, I would say, or something similar. Alright, so if we assume our opponent's on Dredge, which I am just going to assume they are, we should cast Serum Visions, because our opponent's trying to do something unfair. Okay. Cryptic Command's not bad. Mentor. Bottom, and we are going to try to just mentor them. I think that's maybe an aggressive line, but I don't think it's an indefensible line. I think there's a lot of play to keeping a mentor on top. Alright, our opponent doesn't have a land. That's interesting. I'm at this point, I'm not sure if our opponent is trying to just gain information from us. I think that if we show them a Monastery Mentor... Alright, so our opponent thinks that we're just on blue-white. Can we glean anything from the fact that they think we're just on, like, blue-white control? And are on the Plague. So they mulligan to 3. That leads me to believe that they're on something unfair like Dredge again. I don't really know any other deck that can mulligan down to 3. I mean, I guess unless they actually had 0 cards in hand. Like, Dredge, sometimes you just have to mulligan hands that don't do anything. Do we want to make any changes? I do kind of want to hedge that this might be Dredge, so I'm going... This could be wrong. This could be wrong, guys. Taking out a Terminus, taking out a Supreme Verdict. Just hedging a little bit, not like a lot. I'm going to do that, and we're taking out 2 Paths. I'm bringing in 2 Quellers, 3 Quellers, and the Vendilion Click. Just hedging. I'm assuming our opponent's on something that's very unfair, and I don't think that Verdicts and Terminus is going to be very good.
I mean, we'll keep this. This has got two really good cards, two sideboard cards. Alright, well, I was wrong with whatever our opponent's doing. I guess if I had to guess now with what our opponent's doing, it's that they're on the As Foretold deck. We're just going to top both of these. All of these cards are great. We're going to put a clock on our opponent, and then we're going to Spell Queller, Mana Leak, everything into Oblivion. Yeah, they're on the As Foretold deck. So we're just gonna... We'll just play Planeswalker, that's fine. If our opponent jams an As Foretold, or cycles, jams an As Foretold, I'll be really excited. No cycling. Oh, our opponent's taking turns. Yeah, we're gonna leak that. No thanks. Alright, so our opponent's taking turns, which is interesting that they're 4-1 with taking turns. It's good for them, actually. They try to play like... Oh, I don't... Yeah. Alright. Looks like our opponent might be... they're stuck on lands, so we'll click them, take a look at their hand, and then, yeah, they're going to remand this. That's fine. Okay. Sure. Remand. That happens. I really don't think that playing Jace is really doing anything here, so we're gonna yeah, I mean, we have spell quellers for their next couple of things. They need like many things here. If this gets remanded again, that's fine. Okay, we'll take a look at your hand. We might take a 5-mana spell. Alright, so they got Spell Snare, Dispel, Cryptic Command, Dictate of Crufix. I'm kind of a fan of taking the Cryptic Command. They're going to cast the Dictate of Crufix at the end of our turn. Dispel, Spell Snare. Temple Master, Time Warp. Okay, we'll take the Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command's the only way they have to actually like reasonably interact with. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, dictates or Cryptic Command's the only way they have to reasonably interact with our spell quellers, and by taking that off the table, I think it's a lot harder for our opponent to yeah, like turn the corner, win the game, you know, by casting a bunch of stuff. So start by getting in there with Vendilion Click. Opponent's going to get to draw a couple of cards here. We're going to so they have Spell Snare and they have Mana Leak, or not Mana Leak. Ancestral Vision. Alright, so we have a big question here, which is, do we want to cast a Spell Queller? And I think the answer is no. I didn't just want to beat stick. This isn't great for us. Alright, we're just going to play the Colonnade, which will allow us to get a better clock at some point. Like, because if our opponent exhaustions us here, I think we're just, I mean, we just, like, let it resolve, because it doesn't really do anything. It'll keep the click tapped down, and the Celestial Colonnade won't untap, but I'm not terribly too worried about that. Another Ancestral Vision. Our opponent's going to try to fight through a bunch of counter magic, is what it looks like. Alright, and then once again, we'll just get in there with that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So we're. Yeah, I don't think I want to. The Serum Vision just doesn't do very much because our opponent is having us draw so many cards. What card do we want to discard out of all of these cards? Probably the Riverwise Auger. I don't see a situation where we cast that card. At the very end of our opponent's turn, we will probably just flash in a Snapcaster Mage. Up this clock a little bit. If our opponent wants to counter the Snapcaster Mage, that's fine. We know they have a Spell Snare. Okay. That's fine. Countered. Draw. We'll play Colonnade. Attack. Alright, so next turn our opponent gets to draw like a crap ton of cards. 5 mana. They're going to Time Warp. Alright, so we will Mana Leak this Time Warp. And they're going to Dispel the Mana Leak. Alright, so they gotta have, I think, another Dispel to not lose this game. Would love to exile your Dispel. And that's it, guys. So you can see the power of our Miracles deck. We were able to 4-1 right there, which is a very decent record. I think we played pretty well. We didn't blink against the Taking Turns opponent, and I think we did a pretty good job. So I hope you guys enjoyed what you were seeing here. I know that was really long. There's a lot of very intricate lines of play with that deck. You can talk to me about what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. I can't really speak to exactly how lucky we are, especially with those pairings. We had 4 of those 5 matches are not what I would consider like amazing matchups. You want to be playing against mid-range strategies. But we were able to beat 3 of the 4 decks that I didn't think we could. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And hopefully see you next time. I'd like to run this back, possibly run Oren's list. And thanks. See you next time.